Ready for the first sip, John?
Born ready, sir. Thank you for having me this morning.
Good morning to you. This is the first sip where John and I talk about exciting financially related topics of the day that people are chirping about, thinking about, and we just dive into it. First topic for today is gambling, the rise of gambling. I am not a gambler. I never have been. I think my dad was a bean counter. He was an accountant for 35 years, and that had some influence on me. That had something to do with it. He was not a gambler. Gambling seems fun. I understand why people enjoy it, but I've never been one. So I'm talking from a non-gambling perspective. You may be a little bit different. Why don't you describe your experience with gambling?
Yeah. First and foremost, I do not have any kids. No one is directly relying upon me and my income. I look at gambling as a form of entertainment. I like to bet on the occasional football game on the weekend, and I certainly don't risk anything that would put my financial goals at a detriment of not occurring. That said, it's really fun, and there's a number of ways to go about it these days.
Well, tell me what you see as the most common way to go about it right now.
Online sports betting, online poker rooms seems to be more prevalent. It's becoming legal in more and more states. There seems to be a large community who has embraced this, and you'll see it on ESPN. You'll see that they actually provide sports wagers, spreads, over-unders on major news networks now. It has become ingrained in our culture. It has become a profitable source of revenue for NBA, NFL, NHL, golf, and you can't seem to watch a sporting event without being exposed to things like fantasy leagues, draft leagues, and it's just become the new norm, for better and for worse.
I've noticed that too. Major sports media networks now have shows about gambling. They clearly have arrangements with these gambling services, stuff like that online. It's become big business, and it seems like it's picked up quite a bit this year. Now, do you think this is a function of stay at home, work from home? People don't have social lives anymore. They're bored. This is a way to be social and engage and do something fun. Do you think that has much to do with it?
100%. I think it's a combination between the perfect storm of timing of COVID and staying at home and not getting your fix. Let's face it, human beings, everyone has a vice. Could be food, could be alcohol, it might be gambling. There's something innate in most people that they need to do something unhealthy for themselves. When you're forced at home and you are sitting there watching something that may or may not be that relevant, if you put $2, $5, anything on the game, you have a dog in the fight, so to speak, and it really becomes a point of entertainment. And I think the combination between sports embracing that over the past 2 years, combined with COVID and staying at home, just like online shopping becoming more prevalent, it's just taken off at a rocket's pace.
It seems like these sites have become better too. They're more fun. They're gamified. Have you noticed that the actual way to play is more exciting?
Oh, absolutely. They are really reaching out and trying to figure out, okay, there is the hardcore gamblers that are playing the spreads and the teasers and the round robins and all the different parlays and terms that most relatively sophisticated gamblers are going to hit. And then there's the fun stuff of, hey, build your fantasy golf team to see who's going to win the US Open. And if you're in the top 5%, your $5 wager could win you $100. That sounds fun to most people. The problem is inevitably folks end up getting that mentality of I have to break even, and they might dig themselves a deep hole that they can't get out of, and they risk things that they shouldn't be risking.
I've been doing budgets with people for over a decade now, and Nobody has ever included gambling income in the budget. Nobody has ever been so bold as to plan for income they made from wagering. And at the same time, I've never seen anybody enter it as an expense. I suspect it's probably just something that people don't want to talk about. I get it. I'm sure I've worked with people that somebody's gambling and it just hasn't shown up. I'm curious, do you think that this is becoming more mainstream and more accepted and people are talking about it and owning up to it, or is it still very hush hush taboo and people are a little ashamed? Where do you think that's going?
I can tell you personally, I've been doing it for a little while now. A couple years ago, you didn't want to share that you were betting on sports teams. You really didn't. You'd share your wins oftentimes, kind of like stocks. You tout your wins. You tend to forgive and forget your losses. But now it seems that, when I'm calling my buddies, we're talking about watching the football game on the weekend. The former conversation used to be, well, what's this player going to be doing? How's the team going to be? Now it's, well, do you think the Jets are going to cover the spread over the Jaguars this weekend? Well, I don't know. That seems to be more prevalent. And whether you're betting $2 or $10,000 on a game, it is more accepted. And multiple people, in fact, people that I would never expect to gamble, are now talking about it. And I think it's because you are seeing it in the media in so many different places. It just becomes acceptable.
I read this morning that you're familiar with Barstool Sports. It's become a really big sports media organization. 62% of their audience apparently admits that they're gambling. About half of them say they're doing it weekly, and about half of them say that they're betting at least $50 a week. So I'm curious, what do you think? The casual, just average, want to have a little fun gambler, are we talking about $50 to $100 a week, or are we talking about a much higher number than? I'm just asking you for the middle of the bell curve. What do you suspect people are doing?
Well, one, I think that number has gone up over the past couple of years. It used to be, at least in my circles, $50 to $100 a week you'd wager. If you're good at what you're doing, you might come out even on the year. I've had years where I'm up. I've had years where I'm down. Collectively, it's been a lot of angst and anxiety, and I wish I could just appreciate sports for what they are instead of putting dollars on it. But for whatever reason, I can't get out of my own way. If I had to say now, that number's on the rise. I think it's relative to income. I think it's relative to, like you said, or like I said earlier, sorry, you have your vices. So if you can't go to the bar and you're no longer spending $100, $150 a week on the alcohol that you would be doing at happy hours or the weekend hits, now you're placing that on online sports, and you don't feel guilty about it because you can justify the spending of those dollars. The problem is if you get the hook in you, that can double or triple very quick. And I have had friends dig really deep holes to the point where they're talking about credit card debt. And that's the issue with online gambling versus in a casino. Casinos won't let you take out credit card debt. You might be able to take a line of credit on your credit card, but that's through your company. You can't walk into a casino and lay a credit card on a table and gamble on craps or blackjack. If you're online, you enter your credit card, they will charge whatever you are willing to say on that card and take off. That's an issue.
The two major problems that I anticipate are number one, marital problems, because you typically don't have two gamblers in a household. I'm sure there are many households that do, but most of the time you don't. So if you have one gambler and that gambler is not out in the open about it, I can imagine that creating some problems. And the other is addiction. Of course, $50, $100 a week goes to 1,000, goes to 5, goes to 10,000, and now we're in serious trouble. On these platforms, I'm curious, do you see built-in mechanisms to have controls over this that might be helpful at all? Or are they designing algorithms much like we learned about Facebook and other social media platforms, where they're optimizing to squeeze every last dollar out of you in an addictive way. How are you seeing those platforms go in terms of um, what they're providing to the gambler? Are they squeezing you, or are they helping you manage it?
They're squeezing you.
Both.
100% Surgeon General's warning on a carton of cigarettes, but yet they are, or vaping these days, where they're putting 20 to 30% the nicotine in your system. There's 1-800 numbers, get help. Hey, if you're having issues, do this. But let's say your account goes to zero. Within a week or two, you get an email. Hey, sign back up and get a free $10. Or, hey, these are your reward points. If you could gamble a little bit more, you get a bigger tier status. And on every loss, you get rewarded some change back. They really make it super friendly to dig yourself a deep hole, whether you're losing or winning. Doesn't matter. And the ability not just to sports gamble, because that's what we focused on, but you can hop on a blackjack table online, bells and whistles, pick your table color, play against the dealer, have other people in a chat room where it's friendly and you feel like you're getting social interaction. But those games go so quickly that within 10 minutes, you can play 20, 30 games back and forth. And the statistics are set up that you will lose. And they're doing everything in their power to help you fork those dollars over.
I haven't thought a ton about it, but that's why we do this. I want to get your thoughts. My initial thought is, within a budget for a household, number one, if we can be honest about this, that would be preferred. I think that helps a relationship if we're honest about it. And then if we have an allocation toward entertainment, we don't expect any real return on entertainment other than fun. It could be going to a restaurant, which fewer people do, going to a concert, which fewer people do. It could be gambling. So if you have $500 a month towards entertainment, perhaps gambling is an allocation and you don't need anything out of it because you were going to spend it on entertainment in some fashion. And as long as we can be honest about that, maybe that's a way to control it and be honest, and have transparency in the household.
I think that's a good idea. I think the conundrum that you're dealing with, and I've talked to my friends about this, when you budget for restaurants, entertainment, trips, that all seems like you're getting a value and you're spending dollars, and it's very black and white. Okay, I have $3,000 in the budget. I'm going to go live this vacation. Gambling, although it should be looked at in that same bucket of entertainment, if I win or lose it, whatever, it's meant to be spent, and this is what it's earmarked for. People often look at gambling like opportunity. It feels different. It's, oh, well, I have my entertainment budget, but this is a way for me to make money, so it doesn't really fit in that. It absolutely should and be there, and you should treat it like, if you do this, you can't have this. You can't have your cake and eat it too. It needs to be an expense. You should have the ability to be honest with yourself, with your partner, that, hey, if we're doing this, I'm doing it, and here's why. But certainly, it's really difficult to wrap your mind around, and gambling has been around forever. As long as human beings have been around, a get-rich-quick scheme always is appealing. And I think that's the detriment to ourselves, and also why it's so difficult to compartmentalize as purely entertainment, because if you go to a restaurant, you consume that good and you enjoy that time and you pay for it. With gambling, it's like, oh, well, this was fun, but also I could make money. And that's the difficulty of the conversation.
Yeah, I suppose in an effort to bring gambling out of the darkness into the financial planning framework, number one, the gambler has to have a degree of honesty about that, about this is an expense. I am not a money-making machine here. This is not part of the income part of the budget. That's number one. Number two is being honest with the gambler's partner. And then three, it's putting a number around it, keeping it contained. I think that's probably, at this point, the formula that makes the most sense. Hopefully we'll get more traction with it. because it's
Yeah.
the problem's not going away. Only more people will be getting involved.
Well, the negative and positive consequence of it being more mainstream, right? It's come out of the dark. So I think that will help folks be more honest with themselves. Now, you're going to get a larger pool of participants that are choosing to engage in this business and in this behavior and in this entertainment. And I think it is fun. I personally enjoy it. I do it. It's like drinking a beer. I know it's not great for me, but you know what? I'm going to have that beer sometimes. And so long as we can get it out of this stigma and out of the dark and be able to talk about it, I think then systems and processes go in place to make it okay, and so that less people are ruined, hopefully, by their gambling addictions. And addiction's a strong word, but it's an accurate term. And I have seen friends personally have to miss trips, have to put off down payments for a property or a new vehicle for a few months because they've hurt themselves. And I think the conversation needs to be had and it needs to be put out there. And that's the only way we're going to find a solution to this.
Fun question for Friday. We'll end on this, okay? Out of the blue here. As you know, a lot of people are fleeing certain parts of the country, whether those parts of the country are unfortunately on fire, literally, or for various other reasons, they're getting out of big cities. A lot of people are coming our direction, Austin, Texas. I've heard about people going to other cities in America, more the central part of America. This is definitely happening. My question for you is, if you had to leave Austin, where do you go? Realistically, where would you go? What city in America or what town in America would you go to?
You know, I love Texas. I like the people. I like the lifestyle. I enjoy my liberties and freedoms probably more so than just about anybody you'll meet. I'm a big hunter. I'm a big fisher. I want to be able to go do things. I like the accessibility to the coast. If I had to leave, I think I'd choose Fort Worth right now. Fort Worth is a developing city that still has a lot of the at-home vibes. I'm a country music fan. I like two-stepping. I think you can still get a lot of bang for your buck in a city like Fort Worth. It's not quite the Dallas lifestyle, which I appreciate. But at the same time, there's a lot to do there. So I think Fort Worth is a really up-and-coming spot that if I had to leave Austin, it would be my next pick.
That's a very interesting answer. I think Fort Worth is probably underrated too. I haven't spent a lot of time there, but that's not where I would have figured you went with it. I appreciate that. That was a good answer.
I had to look at the next best Texas city. Dallas is too expensive. Houston, I lived there 5 years. I enjoyed Houston. I hope I don't offend anybody with this, but look, it's hot and the mosquito is the city bird and it floods all the time. It's funny I say that because my girlfriend lives in Houston, so I'll likely end up moving there in the next year and a half, 2 years anyway. But I hope she watches this and she's like, maybe we flex and we do something a little different. Who knows?
Here we come, Fort Worth.
Fort Worth.
Friday.
Cheers, Kevin. Thank you for having me.